Welcome back to the Real with Joseph Lappin. I am Joseph Lappin. Hope you guys are having a great Saturday. Welcome into the Real. If you're new here, please like, subscribe, and share the way in here. I'd really appreciate that. And yeah, go check out my recent show I did yesterday with my guy Humble. We did some Cavs content recently to take a little break from the Browns, but we got to get back to the Browns today. There's some news out there. Why I think the Browns are going to be rolling with Sheduer and Deshaun in 2026, and what the real reason I think behind that is, what a lot of people believe that we're in the building. We'll get to that in a minute, but go check out the content. Again, Cavs film breakdown, all kinds of stuff. Did defensive breakdowns, did some Evan Mobley breakdowns. So go check out if you're into the Cavs content, and we had some discussions there. But let's get right into it. The real reason Deshaun Watson is getting another chance, I believe, in 2026. And I'm going to break this down. So you can see right there, I have Deshaun Watson, Kevin Stefanski, and Jarvis Landry. Well, two of those guys are no longer in Cleveland. Obviously, Jarvis left all the way back after the 2021 season. Kevin Stefanski obviously was just fired from Cleveland. Why are they up there? Well, Jarvis Landry went on a podcast recently with Leonard Fournette, and I don't know. I think it's a podcast they're both doing together, if I'm not mistaken. I'll be honest with you guys. I'd never heard of this podcast until I just saw these clips recently. And shout out to Jarvis Landry. Jarvis was one of my favorite players when he was here. I love Juice. He was always very consistent. He was a gladiator. He was tough. I don't think we've really had a good receiver like him since. Well, I would say Amari Cooper, but other than Amari, Jarvis is one of the better receivers I've seen in the last 15, 20 years in the Browns uniform. Obviously him, Josh Gordon for the little stretch, and then Amari Cooper. Jarvis was always consistent in the dog, and he was a leader in the locker room. A lot of guys, everybody loved Jarvis. I never heard one player say they didn't like Jarvis. But I think the real reason, though, why I think Deshaun Watson's getting another chance at 26, why I think they're running it back with Sheduer Sanders and even Dylan Gabriel in the room. Mary Kay Cabot the other day put out a report. I'll put it on full screen for you in her Hey Mary Kay articles, and it says a guy named Jeff Parrish from Florida says, "What did the Browns' current quarterback plan mean for Dylan Gabriel?" And she said, "Hey, Jeff, the Browns still have Gabriel in their plans for 26 and plan to continue developing him. Unless they acquire another developmental quarterback in the draft or free agency, if they add someone whom they believe has more upside potential than Gabriel or who's more closely aligned with what the coaches are seeking, they'll consider trading Gabriel on draft weekend or at some other point. I think the current regime believes Gabriel will fare better in 26, like Sheduer Sanders, with an upgraded supporting cast, but they'll also be open-minded in their quest to field the best quarterbacks they can find." She also went on in the same article to say, answer a question a guy named Dan says, "Hey Dan, at this point, it seems like they're poised to move forward with Deshaun Watson and Sheduer Sanders as their two top challengers for the starting quarterback job. Unless they add a young quarterback in the draft, a trade or free agency. As for receiver, I expect them to draft one or perhaps trade for one before camp." So, and she goes on to talk about Brandon Ayuk as a possible, or she doesn't see them pursuing Brandon Ayuk. But she went on to talk about receiver and a bunch of other stuff. And there was some key stuff in that article. I think she talked about where the Browns are thinking about right now. But the two things in particular to me is the quarterback situation, right? So going back to this one with Dylan Gabriel, right? And I think the most important part of this piece here is she says, "I think the current regime," talking about Andrew Berry and now Todd Monken, "believes Gabriel will fare better in 2026, like Sheduer Sanders." So it sounds to me like, to me, it sounds like Jimmy Haslam, right? Andrew Berry and Todd Monken all believe that Sheduer Sanders and Dylan Gabriel will all do better because the main thing, they have a new coach in town, but also B, he'll have a better supporting cast. They'll have better supporting cast around him as well. And obviously, she goes on to say the real competition is what we all know is Deshaun Watson and Sheduer Sanders. And a lot of people believe Sheduer Sanders is the odds-on favorite and has the lead because he's the most healthy between him and Deshaun. And last time we saw Deshaun on the field, it wasn't great. He's also getting paid all the money. A lot of people still believe the Browns should just cut ties with Deshaun and move forward. And Sheduer's obviously the younger option. He has more upside. A lot of people at this stage of their careers. And why not see what you got with Sheduer with a better offensive line of receivers and a new coach? And so, but I think you can't just say, I know a lot of people say, well, they want to run it back with him because they want to get better support. Well, I think the support's not just on the field. It's not just offensive line and receivers. If it was just support, why would they have fired Kevin Stefanski? they fired Kevin Stefanski because they believed Kevin Stefanski and his staff last year didn't do a good enough job um, managing and developing these quarterbacks. And especially with Deshaun Watson. And again, this goes back before. I know a lot of Sheduer people were getting on Stefanski all year, and they're seeing this Jarvis stuff now, and they're really going after Stefanski because I'm gonna get to the Jarvis comments here in a minute. But you guys remember us who have been following the Browns before Sheduer got here, we're saying the same thing about Kevin Stefanski, how he managed Deshaun Watson. I didn't like the way he managed Deshaun Watson. I didn't like the way he managed Baker Mayfield his last year, and then really that was a whole organizational failure in my opinion. And so I think Andrew Berry, Jimmy Haslam, and upper management believed why they really fired Kevin Stefanski because they felt like it was enough. But also the guy that was keeping Kevin around, Paul DeBodesta, left the building. And as soon as he left, I feel like that's when Kevin's cover left because that was the guy that was vouching for Kevin, liked Kevin because Kevin adhered to the analytics. Kevin was, Kevin changed his whole philosophy. After the 2020 season, they had like a switch in their philosophy to more of the air raid, which was reported that by I think Tony Gross reported. I shared on the show at that time, or back when that came out at that time, that Paul DeBodesta convinced Jimmy Haslam you had to go more of an air raid attack, right? And Jonathan Jones of CBS Sports put out a report that he said that he had basically convinced that Jimmy Haslam was convinced with that, and then also more of the Tennessee air raid attack at that time. Remember when they had the gentleman who was now in the quarterback who's now in Detroit, I can't remember his name. And they had that air raid attack that year. They were winning some games before he got hurt. He was a Heisman Trophy candidate, and he's obviously a Tennessee alum. And so they got fascinated with this air raid attack, this analytical approach, abandon the run. When in 2020 they were good because they had they were grounded in the running game first and had the defense just had to get enough stops each game. But the offense was great that year because they had a tremendous running game with Chubb and Hunt. They dominated the line of scrimmage. They were efficient in the passing game. Baker had a really good year, was very efficient. And so, all he had to do was just not turn the ball over as much. And so, and they almost made it to the conference championship. I think they should have made it to the conference championship. I feel like they gave that game away. And there was a controversial, obviously, the Higgins ball going out the back of the end zone that game against Kansas City. We don't have to get into that. But, Megan, I believe this is not just to last year with Sheduer and Gabriel. I believe this goes further back to Deshaun Watson and Baker Mayfield, and what Jarvis Landry is about to explain here in this podcast and what he said recently. And I think this is the real reason why I believe they fired Kevin Stefanski and why I think they're giving Deshaun Watson one more chance. Because a lot of people will say, why would you give Deshaun Watson a chance? You got Shedeur Sanders in here. Right, you still have, and Dylan Gabriel technically still is a younger quarterback. I don't think so. I think Dylan, it's a good chance Dylan may get traded, maybe replace Dylan, but maybe they believe, maybe they believe they can get a little more out of him with a better coach. I don't know, but why would you keep Deshaun Watson around, right? Because it's like, okay, you're paying the guy all this money, you have to keep him around for that reason. But why would you give him another chance? Why wouldn't you just go with the younger guy who has on a fifth year or on a fifth round deal? Right, if he plays really well, you have him on that kind of deal for a couple more years, help you out, rebuild the offensive line like you are right now in free agency, get some more receivers in here. But I just think I think Jimmy Haslam still part of him and Andrew Berry who made the trade, those two in particular. I think they really believe that they can still save Deshaun Watson somehow, and I think they're going to give it one more shot. And I think that's why, you saw, I think it was Daniel Jeremiah around the combine. You see some other national reporters saying they believe right now he's the odds-on favorite to win the job. So, and do I think Kevin Stefanski really wanted Deshaun Watson? No, I don't think that was his first choice because I think the kind of offense Kevin came from in Minnesota, Watson didn't really fit into that. But I think Kevin just was. I think here's why I think Kevin's biggest, and I'm gonna get into more into Kevin. Why I think one of Kevin's biggest failures when he was here as a coach was Kevin didn't stand up for what he really believed. I think Kevin was a little too passive, in my opinion. I've heard from people that were on the staff that Kevin would walk right through a locker room and not say anything to anybody. He'd just go sit in his office. Like he just was not very engaging, not very. I mean, you saw his post game interviews. I mean, the guy wasn't very. He didn't show a lot of emotion, didn't give you much, didn't really ever say anything. I just think he was a little too passive as a head coach, and I think Kevin, like a lot of probably first time coaches like that in this situation, and it wasn't all Kevin's fault. I think the biggest culprit was Mr. San Diego, who was the biggest culprit. I think he had the most influence in the owner's ear. But, you know, I just think the whole reason why Kevin was hired to begin with was rooted in his philosophy. And I think they didn't really pick the best leader at the end of the day. And I don't think I think Kevin could become a good coach, but I think Kevin has a lot of growing to do still. I think Kevin's in a better, hopefully for his sake, he's in a better situation he was here. Like I said, I don't put it all on him. I don't think he had full autonomy as a coach. I think, again, what Paul DePodesta did here in Cleveland, what he's done in recent stints in other sports, I think, hey, he's a hell of a salesman. I mean, shout out to him. Uh, he's a hell of a salesman, and he keeps getting gig after gig. Now, this latest one he got with the Colorado Rockies. Now, he was the third choice. I'm arguably the worst franchise in the sport, but it is what it is. Hey, he still got the gig. But I just think the Browns, now that they've gotten away from that, and I think you kind of seen the wheels fall off once he left with the last regime that was here. That's why they eventually got bladed out. I think they believe Deshaun Watson wasn't probably managed properly. And Stump Mitchell, who was on the staff, the Browns running back coach at that time, came on this show and said those exact words. And he actually talked about the Baker Mayfield situation as well, where Kevin went wrong there. So we'll start with the Baker Mayfield thing. Let's start with that first. This is what Coach Stump had to say on my show almost a couple months ago now about what happened with Baker Mayfield and Kevin Stefanski during that time.
Well, the thing Kevin should have done, don't worry about playing musical chairs with your coaches. You went to the playoffs the first year. Allow those guys to get even better. But for whatever reason, he decided to switch TC and Drew. And TC did a hell of a job because David Njoku ended up becoming a Pro Bowl tight end.
Mm-hmm.
It was the relationship that TC had with Baker, and then it was the relationship that he had with David. That don't always flow. You know, some guys just don't mesh. You have to know how you can handle each and every player. And those
Mm-hmm.
quarterbacks, those guys are kind of like receivers too. They're prima donnas. You got to be special. We had Adam Henry there as a wide receiver coach. He was able to deal with Jarvis and also Odell because he had those guys at LSU as well. So switching around coaches, I think that was one of a few mistakes Kevin made. Well, the thing.
And so what Coach Stump was talking about there was after Kevin's 2020 season, right, where Kevin had a really good year, and or not Kevin's, well, Kevin had a good year, but Baker had a really good year. After Baker's 2020 season, right, his quarterback coach at that time was a guy named T.C. McCartney. After the 2020 season, when the Browns were slowly starting to shift their philosophy away, and it was reported at that time in 21 that you could see they were started to slowly shift away from what they did well in 2020, he decided to, like he said there, his words, play musical chairs with his coaching staff and move T.C. McCartney out of Baker Mayfield's quarterback room, who he really thrived with. And, the coaches all saw it clearly how well they worked together. And I think he brought in True Petzing and then moved T.C. McCartney to David Njoku's room with the tight ends. Now, T.C. ended up staying here all the way through, I think, 2023. And in 2023, David Njoku actually really developed as a tight end from 21, 22 to 23. By 23, he made his first Pro Bowl. So T.C. McCartney obviously was a very good assistant coach. But like Stump said there, your quarterback's the most important position. If the guys really mesh well together, why would you switch that around? And again, I think it's what he's really saying there. It's an ability that Kevin can't. He didn't show a good ability to manage when he was here in Cleveland. He didn't do a good job of managing his quarterback, managing his coach, understanding the chemistry, understanding relationships. Like talk about there with Jarvis and Odell. I think he was really saying, why not bring back Adam Henry after 19? Because he was their college coach at LSU. Why wouldn't you want to just keep them together? He's the guy that can keep them in check and keep them engaged and be the mediator between you, the head coach, and the players. Because at that time, Jarvis and Odell were two of your big offensive pieces that you needed. I mean, you traded a first rounder for Odell Beckham, so you were going all in on him. Why didn't they try to fix that? They brought in Chad O'Shea, so who had no relationship to my knowledge with either of them. So you brought in somebody completely new, and so I think that was one mistake, like you said, with Baker. And I think how he mismanaged Baker, that's really where it started, was that. And also, I know Stump had said too on his show that just him and Baker and Stefanski, going to say him and Stefanski, they just didn't really jive or get along well during Baker's time here with Stefanski. They just didn't seem to really mesh. And so what went wrong with Deshaun Watson as well? Well, Stump came on my show that same show. He came on and talked about that as well. What happened with Deshaun Watson? Here's what Coach Stump had to say about that. Jersey.
Stump, you had mentioned, if Monkey was there when Baker was there, do you feel like, I guess in this last 5-6 years there was, including Watson, because I don't believe players just lose their talent. You know what I mean? Like a lot of people, I'm gonna say Watson for instance. A lot of people, they just lose their talent. I don't think they don't lose their talent. You know what I mean? Things can go on and their head can be out of whack. But do you feel like there could have been better? I guess there could have been better management there for the quarterbacks. And do you think we could see Watson back? Obviously, he's going to be there next year. Could we see him back at that level he was with the Texans, in the right circumstances, right coach, right system?
Absolutely, I think he can. Deshaun, all Kevin had to do with Deshaun was call the game like he called it for all the other quarterbacks. The guys he had, Kirk Cousins in Minnesota, Case Keenum, Baker, and Deshaun would have put up the numbers and obtained the success that he had when he was in Houston, when he led the NFL in passing. But he tried to do some other stuff. He tried to get on Deshaun level. You don't try to get on his level. You coach what you know. And whatever the players do besides that, you can take credit for it. It doesn't matter. But you just be who you are and allow the players to be who they are and do some special things, and that wasn't the case. Baker, it was no question they couldn't handle his personality. So you got to, some of these quarterbacks, you have to have a guy like a Sean Payton or Andy Reid, say his second year with Patrick. They were down there playing the Bengals on the 2 or 3 yard line with only a few seconds left in before the half. And instead of him throwing the ball away, he scrambled and time ran out. They weren't able to kick a field goal. Got in that same situation the next year. He didn't even give Patrick an opportunity. He kicked the dang on field goal. So you have to have a coach that's demanding of those players. And those players, they want to be coached. They're players. They're not damn coaches. They don't have that type of time in the league. Now, if you're dealing with a Tom Brady, oh yes, you're dealing with an older player that has been in the league for a long time. Of course, he's seen everything. He can do some things. But those young guys starting off, you need to hold a hand.
Yeah, going back. And that was Coach Stump there. You can hear how he talked. Or excuse me, let me turn this off of my end. I'm still playing in my ear. But you can hear there how he talked about how Kevin really mismanaged Baker, but also how he mismanaged Deshaun Watson. And Coach Stump has said on his show recently, shout out to the Stump Talk podcast over on Hall of Fame Network. Go check it out. The latest shows he did, he thinks Deshaun Watson will win the job in his opinion. He believes that Deshaun Watson could still play at a high level, and that he believes with better coaching he can get there. And so I think that's what the Browns feel as well. And I think it's not just with Baker, not just with Deshaun, but I think with Sheduer Sanders as well, even with Dylan Gabriel. I think they feel the quarterback position wasn't fully developed to where it should have been in the last 6 years, and that they really needed to make a philosophical change, I believe, first with the Podesta leaving. Now, they're still a little too analytical for me. I do have some concerns. Not going to share any information, but some stuff I've heard privately about the start with Munkett and, having the autonomy to hire a staff and stuff. I still have some concerns there. I'll just leave it at that. But I do believe, though, that the more they get away from that, the better from where they were. What's been basically the philosophy for this organization since 2020, even back 2016 when he got here. But it really took off in 2020 once John Dorsey was, pushed out of town. And so I think the more they get away from that and recover from that and get back to more of a balance in an organization, organizationally, and more football minds, and still have the analytics. Obviously, you want to have as much resource as possible, but have more balance and experience, just like all the other elite organizations do that win championships. I think the better it will be for them. But, I just think because of where they were, I think that's why the quarterback position, why the team suffered, why they never really reached their full potential. I think what we saw in 2020 was what it could have been. You know what I mean? And they never were able to really get back to that. Even in 2023 when they had Flacco for that run, they caught lightning in a bottle, but they got in the playoff game and it completely flopped. It was like they were unprepared. And I've heard Stump say about that. He was still on the staff then before they, let him go, and that, he believes that they, that wasn't really managed in the process leading up to that. Leading up to that game and the game planning. And so, I think this is what the Browns have seen for the last 6 years, that they believe that the quarterback position, like I said, has been mismanaged. And I think that's why they made the move they made to bring in Todd Monken, and why they're running it back with giving Watson another chance. Why they still I think why Andrew Berry believes Deshaun Watson and Sheduer Sanders, could be a quarterback one moving forward. Now, do I think they are looking ahead to 2027 draft just in case? Yeah, I think that's what every organization does. They're not the only organization out there right now that's scouting for next year's draft. So you're always scouting years in advance anyways. But I think that's probably plan B. I think plan A would be for one of these guys to pan out and be the guy moving forward. And so I think it's fascinating. But Jarvis Landry, getting to him now, because I know that's had the meat potatoes of what's going on the internet right now with all this stuff going around. Jarvis, again, him and Leonard Fournette on this podcast show. I don't know the name. I'm trying to find it, but Fourth and South, it's called, on the volume. So shout out to them. Fair use. But this is the first set of comments Jarvis made about Kevin Stefanski, and I'm gonna play it real quick. And then I'm going to play the second tape that I think he said last night or the other day. It was two pieces to it. He said this first, and he said the second part after this, because this is the first part. And this first part went viral. And a lot of people were talking about it in Cleveland, nationally. And so here's what Jarvis Landry had to say. And this was also talking about some other shows, too, I'm going to get to. But here's what Jarvis had to say first.
Picking on the coach, what's his name again?
Kevin Stefanski.
That shit bothers me, right? Even the shit he had going on with Sheduer, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And if you have a guy there that could be your franchise maker, that can change the organization, and I'm not sure what was going on in his brain, or why he didn't want to play him, or whatever the case may be, it doesn't matter. But I have a problem with coaches like that. Like, to me, his resume is not good to me at all. Just being real.
Yeah.
And he gets another shot at coaching where, it was guys like me and you who have great ass resumes, right? And didn't get another shot or not playing at all.
Mm-hmm.
So when I see shit like that, man, that shit had me hot.
Yeah.
So he'd definitely be one of those coaches I would not ever want to play for.
Ever. Man, I would say, you know what? I would say, like, being in Cleveland and playing there, he was cool to be around. It's like you say, it's like, it just almost felt like, as much as he knew what he was doing, right, he really maybe didn't, right? And I think that, like, sometimes, some of these coaches, or most of these coaches, get put in a position too soon. Right. True. They have success as a position coach. Right. Mm-hmm. And then they get thrown into this head coaching role where, you expect most of these coaches that's younger to be more personable, right? More relatable with their players. Yeah. And in most cases, it just doesn't work out that way. Right. And I know, like, my time in Cleveland, especially in the beginning, man, it was great. Like, he ended up winning Coach of the Year. We ended up going to the playoffs. And then for some reason, then after, bro, it just kind of felt like, the spark between the connection between the players and the coaches just kind of started to dim out, right?
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know if he'd be a great coach in the league, right? But I do think he knows a lot about offense, right? I think, you know, he I don't know how much he is involved into the analytical side of things, but I know in Cleveland that was a huge part. So, you know, I think that played a part in some of the decisions that he may have been forced to make, even with the Sheduer Sanders thing, right? Yeah. Either forced to make or persuaded to make, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But we'll see, right? Last year in Cleveland, you know, he's a coach of the year. I think he's 2-time coach of the year, if I'm not mistaken. So, you know, Atlanta will be another good indicator about, you know, where his, you know, coaching career is headed, you know, because that team as well is a team that's struggling, need to find somebody to fill that head coaching position and that quarterback position too.
You know,
So, two things that stood out to me there. I know that was a lot. There was, I mean, I know the big Leonard Fournette. His big thing was he never played for Kevin Stefanski. He said so. That's all he had to say. But Jarvis Landry is the one I really cared the most, obviously, about what he had to say there because he was on the team here in Cleveland, and I think there are two things he said there that goes along with what I was just saying about the analytics side of it and what Stump said about the coaching side of it. We'll start with the coaching side of it. You know, he said after that first year, it seemed like there started to be kind of a disconnect between coaches and players. Well, you heard what Stump said. Um, you heard what Stump said about how once he switched TC McCartney out of that quarterback room, it just wasn't really the same. He started playing musical chairs with his coaching staff. And I think, again, that didn't help the team, like Jarvis said, but it also didn't help the quarterback position, most importantly. And that's where the disconnect started to happen. And I think that's also what happened with Deshaun Watson was here a little bit. He mismanaged his staff. You know, he didn't I don't believe really manage his staff. Probably like Stump said, the coach, they just need to feel like Kevin didn't do a good enough job calling the plays the right way for Deshaun and building the right system around him to fit. And so again, that's with Baker and Deshaun, he really mismanaged it. And why does this correlate with the Sheduer and Dylan Gabriel? You know, I think you look at last season, he started out the season calling plays, and then he gave up play call in the middle of the season to Tommy Reese. So it's like there's just been this mismanagement. You go back the year before that in 24, Deshaun's last year before he got hurt. You know, they brought in Ken Dorsey to run his offense, or they brought in Ken Dorsey to bring an offense structured around helping Deshaun, was supposed to help Deshaun Watson flourish, right? And then he doesn't, when Deshaun's out there playing, he doesn't let Ken Dorsey call the plays. And then his offense that he brought in, no, Kevin wants to call plays in a totally different offense that he's never called plays in before. And then he gives Ken Dorsey the play calling duties once Deshaun gets hurt. And it's just I mean, it was, and I was bitching the whole year that year. I'm like, what is this guy doing? Like, you're completely, why would you even bring in Ken Dorsey to begin with? You're just going to keep calling plays. It's like, I used to use the analogy when Kevin was calling plays out of Dorsey's system. It was like Kevin was like if he worked at a Mexican restaurant and made that type of ethnicity food for 15 years, and then all of a sudden you threw him in an Italian restaurant and said, now go make some dishes. With no training, like he wouldn't know what to do. That's not his flavor. It's not his style. It's not his type of food. It's not his type of culture. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, it's just two different things. But then he gave up play call to Ken Dorsey once Deshaun got hurt. And so again, that whole thing was completely botched by Kevin to start with, the coach. And then obviously the analytics side of it, how he said there, obviously analytics were a big thing in Cleveland. Look, man, I've said it for years on this show, the last 2 years especially. Some of my most popular videos I ever did were on Paul Podesta, and just a lot of the overuse of analytics in Cleveland, and that was a lot of it too. And I think that's still a problem that still may prevail in Cleveland. We'll find out. I think Todd Monken will be a little more brash and standing up for what he believes from a football standpoint. I know he likes analytics and he uses it as a tool, but hopefully they have more of a balance moving forward. I hope that, I hope it's not the same full analytic stuff that we've seen here in recent years. But again, and then going back to this year, shout out to Mark Malone. He said everything gets botched by everyone in Cleveland every year. That's a hell of a net. Yeah, exactly. It gets botched every year. I mean, it got botched with Baker. It got botched with Deshaun. It got botched with Dylan and Sheduer. It gets botched every year. And so, and all the stuff last year with Sheduer, I mean, going back to the preseason and, getting ready, because, the owner came out and said that he was going to play before the season. At some point, he was going to take over. And people question whether he was prepared probably for that moment, because, again, when the owner says he's going to play, he's going to play. So the guy that wrote the check said he's going to play. But how did they manage that properly? It didn't look like it, and then, again, the switch in play callers and all, it was a mess. And that's why I think they moved on. And that's why I believe, going back to what I said today, why I think the real reason Watson's getting another chance and why they believe they can still get something out of Sheduer and Dylan Gabriel, mainly Sheduer. I think that's the real competition, is Watson and Sheduer. And I think right now a lot of people believe Shador's the favorite, because the last time we saw Watson, it wasn't great. And obviously he's coming off a major injury. He ruptured his Achilles on the field, and he re-ruptured it in his rehab process. So how's his body even going to respond? That's a whole nother thing. Physically, can he even do it anymore? And then where's he at mentally? I think in his personal life, I think he's in a better place now. It seems. I don't know. I don't know the man personally, but it seems like it's better from afar than it was when he first got here. Because obviously, when he first got here, was fresh off all that allegations and stuff, and all that stuff. So, I know now he's married and stuff. So I don't know. Maybe we'll get a different Deshaun Watson. Maybe like Stump believes. Maybe he can get back to being the Deshaun Watson people think he can be, where he could be at least a serviceable quarterback. I don't know. I think Sheduer Sanders was better coaching in his career finally at that position. I think he can become something that, he could be a very good quarterback in this league. So we'll see. I know, and my guy Yo Thoughts On says he likes Dylan as a starter. Who knows? Maybe I'm not a believer in Dylan as a starter because I just don't like shorter quarterbacks, and he's also left-handed, and just I think the combination of both those things, I think, doesn't really fare well in the NFL. But you never know. I mean, with a different coach, I think we saw this when Jim Schwartz came to Cleveland in 2023. Because remember, after 2022, a lot of people, if you go back and watch at that time or look at the articles, there was a lot of guys in that defense people were writing off. They were writing off JOK. Martin Everson, I believe, didn't really hit his peak yet. I think he was on the team in 2022. I could be wrong on that. But there were some guys. I mean, even look at a guy like Devin Bush, who came to Cleveland during Jim Schwartz's tenure. He was a guy who was in different systems, different coaches leading up to when he got to Cleveland. Jim Schwartz made an immediate impact in the development of that defense. He made a guy like Martin Emerson flourish. He help a guy like JOK became what he became. Now, obviously, unfortunately, I don't think we'll see JOK play again. It sucks. He was a hell of a player. But you go watch JOK from 22 to 23, the difference with Schwartz, it was night and day. That whole defense got better under Jim Schwartz as a unit, just everything. They were able to stop the run finally. I mean, in 2022, they couldn't stop a nosebleed. Teams just ran all over them. And some of that was on the GM not bringing in defensive tackles that year. But I think what you saw with Jim Schwartz, even when they had guys go down, they got down to the second, third, fourth stringers, they were developed. They were prepared. He got the most out of guys in that defense. And that's why they were one of the best defense, if not the best, in 2023. They were great that year, especially historic. I think statistically, historically, they were one of the better teams defensively in a while. And they were great. And so, but you see how much coaching matters. At any level, coaching matters. And, I think a lot of times people overlook that. We expect these guys to be finished products when they come to the league. But, when a guy like Sheduer, Dylan, or even Deshaun, Deshaun at one point was a Pro Bowler, was a top 5 quarterback in this league in 2020, right? But he hasn't played in 6 years, really, if we think about it. He's played, obviously, in his time in Cleveland, but he hasn't really, played a full season since 2020. He hasn't been the same guy since. He needs development. He needs coaching. He needs somebody to help him get back to that point. He's not just going to walk out there and just magically become that guy again. Everybody needs coaching at some point. And life, we're never finished products. We all need development. We all need people we can lean on. We all need friends we can call. We all need to be told the truth sometimes. We all need to get better. You know what I mean? That's just life. We're always evolving. I think my man Humble's going to join me in a second. I've been going on a rant, keeping him back there waiting. But you're never, it's like Humble sent me the one time this thing. It's on Instagram. It was like, you're never really in your prime. You're always evolving. And I think in sports, that's really true. Obviously you do have a physical prime in sports because that's just how we're made. But I think we always need coaching. We always need development. And no matter where you are in the stage of your career, whether you're a guy coming out of your rookie year or a rookie coming in the league, or a guy like in Watson's case, you got to have your coach has to put you in the right situations to succeed and to help you get the best out of you. And I think we didn't see that in 6 years in Cleveland. I never saw a quarterback whisperer. I think there was moments where the system, right, where they made more of an emphasis to run the ball first, right, and had a good offensive line with Bill Callahan in there. I think that's when they had more stability with the quarterback position at times, when they were able to throw certain guys out there and win some games. But overall, I didn't see it. I didn't really see a full quarterback. I never saw a quarterback developed here under Kevin Stefanski. I didn't. I never saw the quarterback whisperer. It just was never shown to me. What I saw was an offense that was really led by other coaches on that staff. Because I think what makes a great head coach, and that's not a knock Kevin, what makes a great head coach is the staff he surrounds himself with. And I think most head coaches I know, that they always say the number one hire they make when they take over is offensive line. Who's your offensive line coach? You saw Todd Monk when he got hired. The first guy he hired was George Warhop, because that's the most important position. Who did Kevin have from 2020 to 23 in those 2 years when they made the playoffs? It was Bill Callahan. Who did he just go rehire when he finally got back to Atlanta? Bill Callahan, right? And when he had Bill Callahan, he had Stump Mitchell, and he had Alex Van Pelt before they fired all three. Because when they had all three, you saw that year in 23 when they had their fourth-string left tackle, right? And they went to all the quarterbacks, musical chairs of quarterbacks, still made the playoffs and had success that year. And they brought in a guy in Joe Flacco who really didn't need developed at that point in his career. Joe was, Joe was already, established, won a Super Bowl. He was almost 40. There wasn't a whole lot more you could teach Joe. He already knew the game in and out. But and he had still been playing ball up to that point. And so he just sat on the couch up to that point in that year, but he was ready to roll. But it was an easy fit. It was just the right mix, but it worked. But you got to give a lot of credit to the coaching staff that year. But then what happened once they fired that coaching staff? Everything went to shit. And it was mismanaged from who's calling play calling duties. I mean, in 24, at one point, Mike Vrabel was the offensive line coach. He was more of a defensive guy. I mean, you had terrible stability in your offensive line the last 2 years in that room. The most important position coach on the team, zero stability there. And so you saw the result of that. And again, it goes back to Kevin. He couldn't manage it well. And I think this is why the Browns, I know there were some rumors leading up to this, and I reacted to some. I thought maybe there was a little credence to some of them, whether they interested in Ty Simpson or Malik Willis, and I thought Malik was going to launch out because of the money, but also I just didn't think they would pursue that seriously. But even like with Ty Simpson coming out of the draft, I know he has connection with Monken and stuff like that. I just think the Browns really believe now that, after, once Monken probably went and watched back a lot of the tape and give his analysis on the situation and just hearing probably what happened from people that were here, I think that's why him and Barry and then even Jimmy Haslam, they're all like, we're going to roll with these two guys moving forward because we believe one more year, maybe, who knows, we can get something maybe out of one of them. And if we don't, hey, we got next year's draft. That's going to be a loaded quarterback class. But I think they believe they can get something out of one of these guys. You know what I mean? And so I think that's the real reason why he's getting another chance. Now, Jarvis Landry also, I might as well play it because it's trending in the streets today. But this will be my last part here on this whole thing. But Jarvis today I think he was reacting to that last clip you saw there because it went viral. He went back on his show and had these words to say about Alex Van Pelt calling the plays. And I got some insight on this I'm going to share in a minute. But yeah, here we go.
That record, he deserves two-time coach of the year. Maybe he got it because he was coaching the Cleveland Browns.
His first year he came in.
Yeah. We
made some noise.
Yeah.
Obviously, the years before we hadn't had no success at all. So, it was. I do think it was fitting and well deserved. I know when I was there for 100% fact, when we were struggling as an offense, I know Kevin Stefanski himself gave up play calling to AVP. The same thing that he's done. That we have guys that have told us that he's done throughout the years of not being able to get it done as a play caller and then putting it off on somebody else. Then the team gets success, and then he takes over play calling again. I don't know how much history he's going to have as a head coach But again, with this record, only thing he really got going for him is those 2-time
That's it.
Coach of the Year.
Now, you heard what he said there about giving up play calling and then he would take it back when they had some success. Now, the only times Kevin gave up play calling that we know of is when, and somebody put in my comments earlier, and they hit the nail on the head because this is what happened. Where was it? Shout out to where was the comment? I thought somebody put it in there. Okay, maybe not. Or maybe it's a comment. No, actually, excuse me, it's a comment I read on this Twitter thing, on this post. But the only time he gave up play calling was to Ken Dorsey in 24 and to Tommy Reese last year. Both times Jarvis Landry obviously was not in Cleveland. So I think Jarvis has to be alluding to the time when he was here with Alex Van Pelt in 2020 and 2021, right? And I think if I had to guess what I think Jarvis is talking about here is when Alex Van Pelt called plays in that playoff game because Kevin had COVID and he couldn't be there. He was in the basement, I remember, remotely. But AVP called plays that day, and one of their best games they ever played, probably the best game they ever played, in my opinion. They went into Pittsburgh on the road. I wouldn't say a hostile environment because nobody was there. It was cardboard cutouts in the stands. So, it wasn't like they were in a hostile, but still, it was their first playoff appearance in a long time. They were on the road in Pittsburgh. Kevin was at home. He had COVID. He couldn't be there. And Alex Van Pelt called the plays, and they came out and exploded in that game. And they basically blew out Pittsburgh in that game. I know Pittsburgh made a little run at the end, but the Browns dominated most of that game. All, if not all. I mean, and I think they put up 40 something. I think they put up 40 that night. Somebody put in the comment. They remember the final score of that game, that Browns playoff game versus Pittsburgh. I think it was like 49-38, if I'm not mistaken. So they put up a shitload of points. And so, but that was under Alex Van Pelt's play calling. And if you go back and watch that game, the play calling, it was phenomenal that night. You had multiple guys getting involved. Jarvis scored a touchdown. Hunt got on fire. Chubb scored a touchdown on a screen. I mean, Baker was rolling. I mean, it was just a multiple offense. They kept Pittsburgh off balance all night. And obviously, Pittsburgh had the mental errors early, the botched snap, turning the ball over. The defense was picking them off Big Ben. But somebody was there, sent me today. They said, well, because I asked him, I said, did he ever give up play calling to AVP in other than that game? And he said, well, this person said, well, he never gave up play calling his first year. AVP called during the playoff win against Pittsburgh because Kevin was at home with COVID. But they said, I thought he was a heck of a play caller. Talking about AVP, talking about Kevin his first year because he ran the football more. He probably still had Coach Zimmer from his Viking days in his head. Because remember, Kevin, that's where he was under, was Coach Zimmer. And they were a run-first philosophy. So this person who was there said he thought Kevin was a good play caller his first year because he ran the ball more, kind of what he was brought in for, what he was known for in Minnesota. He said he thought he became more predictable as a play caller each year to follow. He should not have won the second Coach of the Year. That should have gone to D'Amico Ryan with C.J. Stroud was a rookie quarterback and when they beat us in the playoffs. And so that was from somebody that was on the staff that texted me and said that he never gave up play calling to AVP any other time. It was only during that time when he had to because he couldn't be there because he was in the basement with COVID. And so I wonder though, Jarvis, what he's saying here though, maybe they should have kept rolling with AVP into that Chiefs game because they had so much momentum that maybe Kevin should have just let that go. Like, hey, it really look how well we did with him calling plays. I think maybe that's what Jarvis is alluding to. I don't think there was a time in 21 or in 2020 where other than that Pittsburgh game, the AVP called plays. So, and I agree with this person. Kevin calling plays in 2020 actually was pretty good because they, like he said, they ran the ball more. But who knows? I think if he would have gave it up to AVP after that, once they beat Pittsburgh, if he would have kept rolling with that, who knows? You might have had light in the bottle again. You may have had that. Remember with Freddie Kitchens when he was calling plays in 18 with Baker? Freddie wasn't a head coach, but it's something with him and Baker, that little run, they just clicked. They just had they were putting up points. They were just rolling. And I think AVP could have been that. And I think maybe that's what Jarvis was alluding to. But, I think Kevin's ego, in my opinion, was a play caller, and he wanted to prove that he could be a great play caller. And I think ultimately that's what kind of just, hurt them in the end, was his mismanagement of the staff and just the quarterback position. And again, this goes back to, like I said, this is why I believe the real reason why Watson's getting another chance and why they're rolling it back with Sheduer, Gabriel, and why the real competition, like Mary Kay said the other day, is really Sheduer and Watson. We all know that. It's Sheduer and Watson. That's going to be the quarterback battle going into camp. I think a lot of people believe Sheduer is the favorite. I think a lot of that is because we don't know what Deshaun physically is going to look like. Like we said, coming off that injury like that where he ruptured his Achilles, and then he tore it again in the rehab process. I don't know how physically he's going to look. We saw him running. And I think he put that out on purpose, that video of him recently doing the running back drill, basically, because everybody's like, why show him throwing the ball? Why is he running? I think he was showing that physically he can still run and that he feels fine. So we'll see. It's going to be one heck of a camp. That's for sure. I can't wait to watch it. And I can follow it every day. I'm going to try to go up to the camp too and get some up close footage for you guys and just see it myself. But shout out to all you guys. And I appreciate you guys commenting. I'm gonna get to some of these comments. Shout out to UHJ5FQ. Why even give number 4 a chance? Let's say 4 plays well, 8 to 9 wins. Would Jimmy give him another contract? That's a great question because part of me wants to say they want to roll with Sheduer because he's already on that rookie deal. He's healthy, and maybe they believe there's more upside with him now than where Deshaun is at early, currently in his career. And we'll see what Sheduer looks like with better coaching too. I think he could become. I think he'll be a lot better with Monken last year, or than he was last year with Stefanski. Excuse me. So I think we're better with Monken this year. But that's a fair point. What if Deshaun does win and he plays well? Like you said, would you give him another contract? What does that contract look like? And would Deshaun even sign it? I don't think another team would ever give Deshaun Watson another chance. But if he played well enough, could there be somebody out there that may say hell with it, we'll pay him a little money just to be a bridge? Maybe. You never know. The narrative on him right now in the last X amount of years is obviously the lowest it could be. Nobody wants to give this guy a chance, but you never know. But it's a fair question. I think number 4, since he has not played for so long, will kind of suck. Bring in a vet off the scrap head. Could they bring in a vet? Maybe. I don't think they'll bring in a vet. I think I'll be honest with you, I think if they bring in anybody, I think they'll bring in a late round quarterback, or maybe they trade Gabriel out, like she mentioned, on draft day or draft weekend, and maybe bring in like a Drew Aller in the 4th round or somebody like that, just as a developmental quarterback. I think I would probably rather bring in a vet personally. I agree with you. I would bring in another vet. Because just in case injuries happen with either Sheduer, God forbid, knock on wood, or Deshaun Watson, I would rather have somebody out there that's not a developmental guy, somebody that's at least has played in the NFL a little bit and is a little, I don't say proven, but he can be serviceable at least. That's what I would like to have, because you got to get some stability in that offense this year. No matter what, you got to get stability back and develop this offensive line, develop the receiving core where it needs to be, continue the progress of the running back room that you brought in last year in the tight ends. So it's like I would bring in a vet if it was me. I don't think they're going to do that. I think they're going to try to either roll Gabriel or bring in another guy in the later rounds to develop. It sounds like we will see all 3 quarterbacks play this year. I think we'll see definitely Deshaun and Sheduer play. I think unless Sheduer beats out Watson, I think we may not see Watson at all. But I just don't get the feeling that we're going to see Gabriel. I think they're leaving the door open for Gabriel. I think they're trying to keep his trade value up and prop him up a little bit, if I'm being honest with you. Truth teller Maxwell, but I think he's going to get traded out of here. Let's see. My man Humble is in the building still. Let's get Humble up here. Rack some of these comments too and get his take on all this. Humble, you there, brother?
Yeah, I'm still here. What's going on with you guys?
Humble, I appreciate being patient, brother. I did not mean to keep you waiting that long, but I had so much content I had to lay out first in my mind. That might be the longest monologue I've ever done.
Hey, it's all good, man.
But
it's
I know
in the
you
name
watch
Humble.
UFC anyway, so you're good.
I'm all good, man.
I appreciate you just being on.
Main card just started, so we're all good.
Do you think we'll see all 3 quarterbacks play this year, Humble?
No, absolutely not. I don't think you should give like you said, I don't think Dylan Gabriel should see the field this year. Too small, can't see over that O-line. Especially with getting a whole new O-line too. I mean, how does that work out with Dylan Gabriel, blah, 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 etc. But yeah, I think honestly, to be real with you, Joe, I would start not Sheduer. I start Deshaun because you haven't really got much out of him for what did he sign, a 4-year?
That was a 5-year,
A 5-year.
fully guaranteed contract. Yeah, I think this is the last year technically.
Yeah. Well, the one thing I will say,
the can on that contract for years.
100%, 100%. I would play Deshaun, let him take a couple of hits, especially. I mean, guys are so explosive in the beginning of the season, man. That's that's where your record really matters most, I think. Because can you start off and have a good start? But I'd say let Deshaun roll out there if healthy. I mean, I think he has a better arm than Sheduer. But if you're looking for future, I mean, I understand. I still don't think Sheduer's the guy. Like I think you said in the past lives, I think he's a building piece. But can he be the guy? I don't know. We had flashes of moments last year. But I would still let him be kind of like how Rodgers was with Brett Favre. Let him. I mean, I know Brett Favre's nowhere near Deshaun. I mean, Deshaun's nowhere near Brett Favre. Excuse me, but kind of like that. I'd let him watch the game from afar. Be like, let Deshaun fight for something that's the starting position because I really do think. I mean, Sheduer. I'm sorry, I get these names mixed up so badly. I really do think Sheduer should fight for something. And when he's fighting for something, he looks really good as far as fighting for a starting quarterback position.
Well, one thing I've said about Sheduer too, I think Monken probably when he evaluated him is okay. He learned a lot last year. He's learned a lot in obviously grew up around NFL guys. His dad's obviously who he was, and he had the NFL coach in college and Pat Shurmur. I just don't believe that when you saw Colorado this year offensively, that staff, I think that's why Deion kind of had to make changes there. I just didn't see a lot of development on that side of the ball, if I'm being honest with you. Never had a real offensive line over there, never a real running game. Travis Hunter was just a freak, but outside of that in the receiving room, they had some freaks on the receiving core. There just wasn't a whole lot going on in Colorado development. There wasn't a lot of development on either side of the ball, but especially offensively. And I think when Sheduer got in the league, he probably didn't get the development he probably should have got in college. Because again, Pat Shurmur didn't show a whole lot to me last year, and I think that's why he's not. I don't know if we'll see him at that level again, even at college. So, I just, or I don't know where he's coaching at now, but I know it in Colorado. So, I think when he got and then last year, that whole thing, just how that was all 4 quarterbacks on a roster going to camp, which I didn't like because you're taking reps away from certain. I'd rather just roll with 3, but they went with 4, and the one guy they traded before the season even started, so it was a whole waste of time. And they knew they were going to start Flacco from the jump, so it was a whole.
And you send him to a division rival. I mean, that puts the cherry on top. Send it to a division rival.
A complete debacle. I mean, so I think when Todd Monken's probably looking at Sheduer, it's like I need to redevelop the development. Like I need to kind of like take this kid and just I want to get the most out. I think he believes in Sheduer. He said he believes in Sheduer, and he's excited to work with him. And they seem to have like a little chemistry brewing already. Sheduer bought him the gift already, the horse's head, and that I think they got something brewing there. He liked Sheduer. He's when he was at Georgia, he scouted him, and brought him in on a visit. And I think they've always had admiration for each other. You could tell. So I think he wants to redevelop the development, and I think Monken also still believes in Watson a little bit too. And he mentioned that at the combine. And here's what he said. I actually had that right here. Here's what he said at the combine about Watson from Coach Monken.
I think any time that you have a player that at one time has exhibited the skill set at an elite level, I think you're always going to give them the benefit of the doubt that somehow we might be able to get that out of them again. And I think that's how you should look at every player. I've said that. You guys have heard me say it. I'm going to let it play out. I think it'd be completely unfair, just like it would be in any classroom setting, be it a history exam, and all the students walk in, and before they're actually given the exam, you give them a grade. Well, how would you give them a grade? Based on male, female, race, how they look, how they're dressed? I think that's unfair. Now, you're going to have some preconceived notions, obviously, because we have prior evidence, but I don't decide who plays. The players decide who plays. I've never decided who plays.
And I think what he's saying there, Humble, is kind of what Jarvis was kind of alluding, what Stumps has said, what I was saying, that like I think Humble, they view both of these guys as like they haven't got the best brought out of them yet. They need some development, they need some work, and both are different stages. But I think he believes he can get the most out of them. And I think that's why the Browns, he probably obviously sold them on that plan during the interview process. And I think that's probably the main reason why they brought him here.
I'll be honest with you. That's probably my second time or third time hearing him speak on players. I want to tell you this. He sounds as if, and I'm just exuderating my own opinions. I feel as if he's more well-spoken, has a better vocabulary than Kevin Stefanski. And I also believe as if he has a little bit more, what's the word? Because Kevin to me doesn't seem as if he's like
Charisma?
Well, it's that charisma, but I feel as if he closes off players. Oh, I'm done with them. You can see with Todd, he's like how you said, they haven't got the best of what their situation's been. And I like the way that he evaluates them, like how he brought it back in as if it was high school again. You don't look at it like as when he was talking about students and everything. That's what you look for in a head coach, because he's assessing it by, I mean, I know he just got there, but he's assessing it. We know about what happened last season, but this is a start of the new season. And I think that's really well spoken from him to say that, Todd Monken.
Yeah. Shout out to Wally. He said, what's up? Just stopped by. Good to see you, Wally. Shout out to VMan33 Humble. He said, why is Stefanski in your thumbnail? Horrible thumbs down.
We got him out of here, man. Don't worry.
That's a good one. But I would say, V-Man, I don't know if you just tuned in, but I would watch the show completely. Humble, this has not been a Kevin Stefanski applause by any means.
No.
Yeah, we actually probably agree, V-Man, on the Kevin Stefanski. So give it a thumbs up and go watch this back from start, and you'll see why he's in the thumbnail. And it's not a good thing for Kevin. I'm just going to tell you. Nothing personal, Kevin, but it's not the greatest outing for Kevin today on the show. That's for sure. I appreciate you tuning in, my brother. Appreciate you tuning in, my friend. Truth Teller Maxwell says, even though Kevin wasn't the best, he's probably the best coach Sheduer ever had. In terms of offensive development, maybe. I mean, I think Kevin and Pat Shurmur come from the same background. You know, I don't know. Kevin probably maybe is a little more detailed than Pat Shurmur. I saw Pat Shurmur as head coach of the Browns. It was only a 1-year deal, I believe. It wasn't long. And I saw him without Sheduer in Colorado, and it wasn't great. So, yeah, probably from an offensive standpoint, maybe. That's probably the best coach he's had. Do I think Monken could be better than all of them? Yeah. Because I think what Todd has proven in college, when he had Stetson Bennett, when he won national championships with him, who was kind of an, undersized quarterback, wasn't the most talented, but he got the best out of him. And hell, Stetson Bennett got drafted by the Rams. And then you saw what he did with Lamar. It took Lamar to a whole nother level, and Lamar won 41 touchdowns, MVP. Lamar evolved as a quarterback under Todd Monken. So Todd's proven with any different styles of quarterback, different levels and calibers, that he can get it done. And so, yeah, I think now he'll have the best coach he's ever had with Monken. By far. He said, now on to something completely different. The draft. HJFQ. He said also F number 4. He's not a show fan. All right. But shout out to, he said the draft. No, we're going to get into the draft. Don't worry. We got draft coverage coming all April. Really after probably next week, we're going to start ramping up the draft coverage. And we took a little bit of a break, watched the combine and stuff. I was doing some Cavs stuff, but yeah, don't worry. We're doing the draft coverage for sure. Obviously with number 6 and number 24 pick for the Browns. They need a receiver still. They need a left tackle still. So they can get both of them right there. Will they trade? Will they not? I got some scenarios I've been thinking of. So we're definitely get to the draft for sure. So make sure you subscribe and leave a comment below. What's some drafts? Let me know your take. UHJF5Q, what they should do in the draft, or anybody else. Let's get some buzz going there. What do you guys think? Wally said keep liking the live stream for sure. Let's see. Make sure I got everything here. Let's see. No, I think we got all the comments pretty much. I already hit on some of them earlier, but I guess Humble. Before I get to what I have you up here for to plug, I mean, what's your thoughts on all this? What Jarvis said, and just your analysis of the show, and what's your take on all this? Do you think this is the real reason why they bring back Deshaun in 2026?
It's hard to say, man. It's because I was honestly having a mindset of, and I don't want to get off of Deshaun Watson, but like I'm of the mindset of like this was a couple months ago. I'm like thinking about this situation. I'm like, why wouldn't you start Sheduer, right? I'm thinking in my head, he's younger, he could get more reps out there. It only helps him, right? But the thing about Deshaun is, we haven't got any time from him to play, and it's really not his fault if it wasn't for the legal stuff and him being injured and all that stuff. You take that out of the consideration, we haven't really got much games, or we haven't really been able to evaluate him. So
it's never fully gotten rhythm going,
right?
Yeah.
So from a fan's
always
perspective,
been something to stop it.
right? Always something, right? And then I get why fans are mad. The contract was an absurd amount of money, right?
Well, yeah, I think that on top of the allegations, which obviously were serious, and then
right,
people's opinion on that. Yeah, I think it was just a culmination of all that.
It's all of that in one, and then and then he's got to deal with that mentally. He's still got to go home as a man and sleep and all that. At the end of the day, if that doesn't affect his mental, you're probably surely mistaken. That's just my opinion. But
and a lot of the fans too, not to cut up, but to add to that, a lot of fans love Baker Mayfield during that time too. Hell, I love Baker, and I'll be honest,
that's a great point.
And I was looking back in 21, I was actually wrong on Baker. I was completely wrong because I wasn't aware of all the other stuff that I've shared on the show, especially today, even of what was actually going on. Baker was actually kind of done wrong too, in a way, if you think about it. He shouldn't even blame here, and Baker fit the city well, man. I missed those days. That 19, right around 18 to 19, that stretch, man, that was one of probably the funnest time I ever had as a Browns fan, because it was just awesome football. It was like we had hope again. That's what it was. It wasn't like they were winning every game. They just you feel like you had hope again. It was one guy who had that swagger just igniting the city,
Well,
and so
that's exactly what you said, swagger. When
people were so attached to Baker during that time too.
Yeah. Well, when you got guys running wildcat plays and executing them and scoring touchdowns, it makes for a culture to get behind you. You know what I mean? It's just it's excitement at the end of the day, right?
Right. Yep.
So that's a great point to add to that, Joe. But for fans who are mad at Deshaun, I mean, it's not rule. It's I would just say if he starts, you get a chance for him to get sacked. You know what I mean? That's how I look at it for fans who don't really like Deshaun. But I really do. We haven't had any real games to assess how good he is or how good he isn't anymore. So hell, give him one more. I mean, this is last season he's got on his contract, right, Joe?
Yeah. Well, I think they're still going to pay him, but yeah, this is the last season under contract in Cleveland, though.
Let him lace him up, see what happens. Hell, you got what? It's 15 games at NFL. Or is it more
17.
now? 17. My bad, I misspoke. 17. Yeah, let him play. Let him play. Because when I look at it from this perspective, Joe, too, and I know this is crazy. I'm not saying we're going to be this crazy offense, but like, I rather Deshaun play for us. Let's say we have a good record, or maybe we're at the 5-5 at some point. Let Sheduer maybe even out the record. Let's say Deshaun gets hurt when we're 5-5. Well, hell, then you get to assess Sheduer as a first string quarterback because hell, we're even. Let's just say potential. This is all potential talk. We're 5-5. Well, we could actually see how he fits in a quote unquote -500 record. I don't know. That's just my opinion.
Well, and I think too, like this is actually good for Sheduer. Competition brings the best out of anybody. Like
Yeah.
you always have to be challenged. You have to be pushed. You're never, like I said earlier, you always need developed. You're never a finished product, really. I mean, you got to get to a level you're an elite player in the league. But I think for Sheduer, it's good too because it's like, all right, you showed some flashes your rookie year. You still need a lot of work. Wasn't you got a different situation now? You technically had a Pro Bowl, but it's like I don't think he's satisfied with that because I think he knows too. It's like he probably doesn't feel he really earned it because it wasn't like I mean, obviously the Pro Bowl's watered down now, but it's like okay, forget about all that. You got a guy now you're going against who he's fighting for it too. I mean, this is his last shot of anything in the league, really. And he at one point was an elite player in this league. So, and a lot of people, there's been reports put out there. I think it's done I think it's good. I'm glad they're out there. I hope Sheduer, if Sheduer needs that extra juice, I mean, it's like okay. Some people believe Watson's the favorite to win. And you heard that nationally. Daniel Jeremiah said it. They believe that's what they're hearing. You've also heard people say when he had his 21-day practice window in December, he was the most talented guy out there over Sheduer and Gabriel. Like if I'm Sheduer, I'm like, okay, I'm gonna prove you wrong. You know what I mean? Like my back's against the wall against some people's eyes. I'm gonna go out there and show you I can do otherwise. And so I think it's good situation for both guys. Both guys need because if you're Deshaun too, this is my last shot. This is it. Like in the league in general. And I got a young buck behind me who's hungry, who he wants to be great. He says he wants to be great. He's got Sanders on the back of his name, and the back of his jersey. Like he's got to prove something too. So it's like I think this is a good competition. This is how it should be. Not last year's bullshit that we saw that was completely fake, and they knew Flacco was gonna be the guy from the jump, and it was all just, that was stupid. This is like a real competition. This is like
right.
And they both have obviously Watson's taken Sheduer under his wing last year and helped him out a lot. So I don't think there's like there's not like beef or anything, but there's like it's a good healthy competition. I think it's good for both of them. I think they both understand what time it is and what they got to do. And Coach Monken, I think, is the right guy to lead it because his brash personality, he's going to get the most out of these guys, I think. And I think it's going to be a hell of I wish Hard Knocks was in Cleveland this year, honestly, because I think that would be great to see behind the scenes of what that looks like. But I think it's good for Sheduer, really. You know what I mean? To just you got to be, and for Deshaun, it's good for him. You got to be pushed and let the best man win.
Well, it's kind of joke because it's just so perfect that I just started realizing that as you said that they're in two completely different parts in their career.
Yeah, and that's what's fascinating about it. I think that's the most fascinating thing about it.
100%. You got Watson, 30 years old, last year on his contract, and Sheduer, he wants to be a starting quarterback right now, right?
Mm-hmm. Fifth round pick, felt like he should have been picked higher. Like, yeah, there's both these guys have a lot of things that led up to this. Some obviously different reasons, and but it's like here they are now though. So I think it's good. I think it's honestly as a competitor. And if you like just football, I think that's gonna be fun to watch, And they're in a situation where they need it, like they need stability at that position finally. And here's the thing: if one of them doesn't pan out to be the guy, guess what? They're gonna look to next year's draft to bring a replacement in.
It's so funny because I'm thinking the same thing because it's like we're not even thinking about Dillon Gabriel.
No, do I think Dillon Gabriel? Do I think Dillon Gabriel is gonna be on this roster by August 1st? No, I don't. I don't think he'll be on. I don't know if he'll be on the roster May 2nd. I mean,
Cardinals could use someone.
The draft is The draft is April 30th.
I was gonna say I thought it was in April. Okay.
April 30th is the draft. May 2nd is the third day of the draft. I think he might be out here by May 2nd. And she said it in the report. I'm not. She said it right there.
Oh, yeah.
She said it right there. She said Gabriel, who's where'd she say that at? She says, I think the current regime believes Gabriel will fare better in 26, like Shore, with an upgraded supporting cast. What did she say about the draft? It was right in there. Oh, right up there. She goes, unless they acquired a developmental quarterback in the draft for HC, if they add someone who they believe has more upside potential than Gabriel, who's more closely aligned with what the coaches are seeking, they'll consider trading Gabriel on draft weekend or at some other point. But I think on draft weekend, I think that's a perfect time for him to get traded because there'll be some team out there who didn't get their late round guy they wanted, Drew Aller or whatever, and they'll be like, all right, we'll take a flyer on this kid. The hell with it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I could definitely see Raiders somehow.
And then she also says right here, they're poised to move forward with Watson and Sheduer as their top two, because that's the real, you know what I mean? They're the two most talented guys in that room by far.
Right. Yeah, no doubt.
And and here I hope Dylan does well, but I just that height and being left-handed, I think it's just not a good combination in the NFL. It's just not. It's just not. And maybe he might have been Kevin's guy because who do they go down? Who do they just get in Atlanta? Big Tua, undersized and left-handed. So maybe that's the formula Kevin likes now. I don't know. Coach CJ888, shout out to you, Coach. Shout out to all the coaches out there. Some of the best people on the planet. Pat Shermer's playbook was apparently really basic at CU, according to Staub. Staub is a guy who's, you guys all Colorado fans, sure, you know who Staub was. He was a quarterback on the roster this year. Played well in one game. He just transferred to Tennessee out of Colorado. They had a lot of guys transfer out of there. Mario Miller went out to Arizona State, and they've had some former players come out and kind of get their real thoughts and feelings on their time there, but I'll just leave it at that. But he said he received more coaching in a month at Tennessee than his 3 years at CU. I'm going to be honest. He's not the only former player that said that from there either. And so, again, I just think Sheduer Sanders, to my opinion, like I said, I don't think he was properly developed in college. And I think last year was like his first taste of learning how to do things on and off the field at a high level, like from NFL minds. And I think now with that guy, a coach that's actually, I think, believes in him and likes him, I think he'll really get the most out of him. You know what I mean? He'll really develop and take off. But do I think he was developed properly at Colorado under Pat Shermer? No, because I saw what it was when he left too. It was even worse. I mean, it was terrible at Colorado this past year with Shermer. Gosh. Got any thoughts on that, Humble?
No comment.
I hear you over there laughing. But yeah, I mean, shout out to Staub though. I'm glad he's got guys are able to go out and I think Mario Miller's a guy I think could be a stud. And I think Arizona State with Herm, I think he's with Hines Ward and Herm Edwards. That's a good spot for him. I know a guy that played at Arizona State and they liked it there. So, Humble Man, Tribe 00 says, who do you want us to take at number 6? And so does UHJ5FQ says, so who are we picking at 6? I'll let you go first, Humble, since you were asked by Tribe 00.
Shoot, I'll be honest with you. I'm not familiar with this year's draft.
I know you're not. You haven't locked in on it yet. I'll ask you this.
Yeah.
You can answer this, and I'll get into more names. Would you rather go wide receiver or left tackle?
I'd probably go with wide receiver. Am I wrong to say that? I apologize. I'm not. I think Jerry Jeudy needs less eyes on him. Am I wrong to say? Yeah, that too. I don't know. I don't know. What do you think?
Well, he says Reese from OSU if there. I love Arvell Reese. Shout out Glenville. Love me some Arvell. But I don't think Arvell's going to be there, bro. I would be stunned if I don't think Arvell falls out of the top 3. I would be stunned if he fell out of the top 3. I think he's going number 2 to I think that's the Jets, if I'm not mistaken, or Tennessee. I think he's going to one of those 2 spots. He said, I laughed. He said, "Hello, me neither." Yeah, Aaron. Hey, if he was there, I'd be with you because, in my opinion, that's just too good of a talent to pass on. Like you got to take him at that point if he falls to you, or maybe try to trade bait get that pick up on the block, and maybe somebody will give you a ransom for it. Because it's not a position of need, but it wouldn't help if you added it. I mean, it ain't a curse if you added it. It wouldn't be bad. I mean, he would definitely make that defense even greater. I think it's already a pretty good defense, but who I think realistically is going to be there though at 6? Who we picking at 6? Man, this is tough because you look at the board right now. There's projection. Obviously, the 2 best left tackles. He said either way, I would hoist a beer. I think we would all be doing cartwheels that night. Either if they drafted Reese or they used, if he was still there and they used that pick Hummel to go get like a ransom of a trade. You know what I mean? Like last year, that was a pretty good trade for them. That worked out. They won that trade, I think. But if they traded out and got like a ransom for that pick, I'd be hoisting I don't drink beer. I'd be hoisting something. I'd be jumping in the
Right.
river. I'd be doing something. Anyways, but who we pick at 6? I don't know. So I think the 2 best left tackles right now are Spencer Fano and Monroe Freeland. Monroe Freeland has really shot up boards after his combine was. He was great. He had super long wingspan. Looks like a natural. To me, he's the most natural left tackle in the draft. Just has the size, the ability. Was very consistent at Georgia in college. He's developed well there. Spencer Fano from Utah, very good school, very good coach. He's now at Dillingham's, obviously now at Michigan, but they always develop really good offensive linemen and front 7 guys in general. But I think he had the smallest wingspan out of the group. I'm not for sure on that, but he's a very good player. He's a hell of a player. Very tough, physical. A lot of people say Monroe Freeling is too high at number 6, but I look at it like this. Because remember when the Lions had that draft in 24, I believe it was, 23, when they took Gibbs and then they took Jack Campbell? Everybody said those picks were too high. Jahmyr Gibbs, you took Jahmyr Gibbs too high. Well, how'd that work out for the Lions since? It's worked out pretty well because they went with their own analysis, they feel like, no, this is what we need. He's the best there. We can get him right here. Just take him now. And it panned out for him. Jahmyr Gibbs is a stud, obviously. And Jack Campbell's a very good player. And they nailed that draft. But, I think with Monroe Freeland, if you believe he's the guy and you think this is our left tackle of the future, then you go with him. Now, if you think you can get him later on, I think Dallas is a team I would look into to trade with. Dallas has the 12th pick and the 20th pick. We have number 24 and 39, which is basically like a late first. It's a high second. So I think you could package maybe 39 and I think you could package 39 and maybe 24 and move up to maybe 12 and get 20, or how do I want to say this? Could I package 24 and 39 and move up to 12? Right? Could I do that? And I think that somebody put out a trade scenario of this the other day where they can get possibly Dallas's both of Dallas's first round picks or something like that. I gotta go read the real scenario. But Dallas, they had 12 and 20. I'm not saying get maybe 20 or 12, but I would try to move up. If I can get 12 somehow, I got 24 and I got that second. Is there any way I can move up with Dallas where I can get the number 12 pick, give them 24 and 39, and we still get the second? We still maybe get their second round pick. Maybe that's a scenario. I don't know. I'm just thinking off the top of my head. I gotta go look at the scenario fully. Somebody laid it out the other day on ESPN Cleveland, and I really liked it. And I was already looking into Dallas because they have 2 first round picks too, and that's in a prime spot. That was from Dallas right now for team. No, somebody on Cleveland radio the other day put that out. That scenario. I saw it on X, and maybe they're throwing it out there too because I'm sure they're looking to trade. When you got 2 first round picks, you're always looking to trade because you got the leverage in a lot of these trades. And so, but I don't know if there's a situation because I like Carnell Tate. Yeah, I like Carnell Tate. I like Mekhi Lemon. I like him a lot. I like these receivers up top. I think we need finally a true number 1 stud receiver. And I like Carnell and I like Mekhi. And, I even like the kid they took, if they went with the left tackle first. They piggyback. All right, I got you. Appreciate that. But I saw it on there. That's where I saw the scenario. And I like that. I thought it was an interesting scenario to get to the point though. With that trade. And, I think I would look into Dallas maybe to move up more. And if I can get a high-level receiver and a left tackle, if they can walk away with that, A+. So, because I think that's the 2 they got to get. But I think who they're going to take at 6, it's going to depend on – I think it depends on that, who they believe they can get with the second pick in the first round. Is it still somebody they believe is good enough to is it still someone they believe, like Omar Cooper Jr., for instance, out of Indiana? I think he's an excellent prospect. Kind of Zay Flowers, Jarvis Landry, even. You remember we talk about Jarvis? I think he's a faster Jarvis Landry. And you look at Todd Monken when he had Zay Flowers in Baltimore, he likes that slot guy, the true slot that can flourish, high volume guy. I think that's why you're seeing a lot of Omar Cooper buzz with the Browns because I think that kind of fits what Monken likes. And they haven't had a slot like that since Jarvis. So, and I think you need that. Like you look at what Jackson Smith-Njigba did for Seattle. A lot of these teams, they have really good slot receivers, guys that are always open and just they get a lot of touches. They always catch the ball. They're always open. They're always available. So in that scenario, I think maybe what if you took the left tackle first because that's what position is more important? Left tackle, obviously. You got to protect your quarterback, his blind side. And so, especially when you have two quarterbacks that really need to get in rhythm and get established. So I like Monroe Freeling a lot. I think he's the most natural left tackle. Is 6'2" high? Maybe. But what I wouldn't really kill him if they took him at 6. I think I just feel like I said with the Lions, if you need a left tackle, he's the best on the board. You think he's a high first guy, take him. And you just hired George Warhop, one of the best offensive line developers, and really the last, Joe Thomas is one of the best ever. So he developed Joe Thomas when he was here. So how did that pan out for the Browns? The best left tackle that we've ever had, and one of the greatest ever. So maybe roll with that, and then take Omar Cooper. I would be mad at that pairing. So I think it's just going to depend on how high they view the receiver prospect over, the left tackle, and where they think they can get who, and can they trade up with Dallas or maybe another team we're not even talking about. Like, there's a lot of different scenarios, but I'm kind of leaning more towards, I don't know, humble. One day I say left tackle because I'm a lineman and I know importance in the position, but I'm just a little humble. I just want to see some flash out there finally, man. I want a receiver, man. I'm tired of this shit. Like, I'm tired of watching, like, you know what I mean? Like, I get it. Like, I'm not opposed to either way, really. He said, "I'll coach you. I'm retired, but the better too." No, you're good, bro. I appreciate you. Like Cooper also, really like Lane. Yeah, Jacoby Lane. I think he's projected more in the second or third. I think his name is from USC. Yeah, Jacoby Lane. I've seen him projected in the second, even some third, but yeah, he has a lot of upside too. If they take Tate at 6 and Tyson is still there at number 24, would you take him? Tyson has fallen because of pro day and combine no shows. Tyson, I know Tyson though has a hamstring thing that he's dealing with, if I'm not mistaken. He has an injury. I think I think allegedly, I heard it's a hamstring. I know he has an injury, and that's why he's falling, because of he couldn't. I think he could participate because of his injury. I think he's injured he got some injury. That's all I know. He's got some injury, and that's why he's not been able to participate in this stuff. I like Tyson. I think it'd be cool if him and Jalen are obviously in the same city. That's Jalen Tyson's brother, Humble. But I don't know though. I think Tate's and Mekhi Lemon are probably higher on their board though. And I think because they're healthier, and I don't know, people are killing Carnell because he was 40, which I don't know. When was 4.5 ever slow? I didn't know it was slow. I think because I know guys are running faster nowadays, but just because you run a 4 doesn't mean you're a good player. Like you go look at Puka Nacua. He didn't run the fastest 40 at the combine, but he's one of the, I think, the best receiver in the NFL right now, or one of them, or maybe Jamar Chase. Some people say, but some of you look at a lot of the better receivers in the league. Well. Yeah, I mean, you look at some of the better receivers in the league in the last 10 years, they all didn't run 4.4. Some ran 4.5 or even less, but they still were hell of a players. So can you get open? Can you catch or can you block? We can work with that eye level. And I think Tate showed that. I think obviously he's playing with Jeremiah Smith. He was going to be he's a freak and a generational talent. So that's why shout out to Brian Johnson. He said Tate was number 2. Yeah. Here, if Jeremiah was come out in this draft, Jeremiah would be automatically the top receiver, no doubt about it. But Carnell was still a great player, and I think will still be a very good player in the NFL. I don't know though. I think Mekhi though. I'll be honest with you guys. I just brought up Puka Nacua. I think when I watch Mekhi Lemon's game, he reminds me a little bit of Puka Nacua. I'm not saying he's going to be the next Puka Nacua, but man, he's got some similarities. His intermediate routes. You can put him inside. You can put him outside. Mekhi Lemon is a very good player, and I think he may fit what Todd Monken likes more. And so maybe that's where I would maybe lean a little bit. I like Carnell though. I love Carnell. I think he's gonna be a great player. He reminds a little bit of Garrett Wilson. That's a lot of people at Ohio State. I know behind the scenes always compared him to, who were there for both. But awesome highlights from Lane. Yeah, Lane's good. Jacoby Lane's potential steal. I like Jacoby Lane. I think another late round guy, or mid round, Skylar Bell, I think is another guy too I really like. He's a slot guy, but he's another guy I really like. I would keep an eye on. I think he led the college football, or was one of the highest in YAC, if I'm not mistaken. He's another good prospect. Is Tate worth it at 6? I don't know. Yeah, I'll be honest with you. I don't know either. That's where I would lean more towards left tackle, because left tackle is such it's the most, in my opinion, after quarterback, might be the second most important position. Or maybe some people would say pass rush. You know what I mean? I get that, but you got to have a solid left tackle. And I think if you feel like that's the guy right there at 6 and you can't get him past at 12 or past, then you got to take him. I mean, you need him. So take him finally. And you did it once with Joe Thomas and the coach whose name just slipped my mind. I just said his name. But the offensive line coach you brought in, George Warhop, do it again. So it's kind of maybe history repeat itself for you. But I don't know. But is it turning into pass and catch league? We have Fannin, Sampson, and Judkins who can throw and thrash and Bond be our deep threat. Yeah, and I think Bond could definitely be a guy who could take the top off the defense. Jerry Jeudy has shown what he can be. Right, we have 2 running backs, right? Judkins and Sampson. We have Harold Fannin, who's a phenomenal tight end. You still need that guy who can run all the routes. I think the intermediate routes, that high volume guy, that slot guy. You can put him inside, put him outside. You need a number 1 receiver. I think Mekhi might be the guy that can fit what Todd likes to do. That's just me. When I watch his tape, I just see more of a better fit. Because Carnell played a lot of outside, mainly outside of Ohio State, and was great. But he ran a lot of deep routes, post routes, comebacks on deeper comebacks. So it's like I don't know. I feel like Mekhi may be a better fit. That's just me. I don't know. I'm gonna watch more tape though. The more tape I watch, the more I get a better analysis. Something to think about at 6 if he's available. Take Love, the running back, at your tackle at 24 and receiver in the 2nd round. I have seen that, Brian Johnson. That's a good start. Appreciate you for bringing that up. People said Jeremiah Love at running back, or at number 6, the running back out of Notre Dame. Excuse me. Jeremiah is a hell of a player, no doubt about it. He's a stud. He's one of the few running backs that gets considered in the top 10. Doesn't happen every year, but you saw guys like Saquon Barkley and we saw Jahmyr Gibbs get taken in the top 10. That worked out well for the Lions. So it's interesting because you have Quinshon Judkins, and I think Dylan Sampson's not a bad player either, but Quinshon I think is a true number 1. I think this would depend on. I think Judkins, from my understanding with the injury, he'll be fine. He'll be back to 100%. I don't know what they think, but I mean, if you're going back to a more ground and pound game, you're going to run the ball a lot, and that's going to be your philosophy. Maybe you consider it. I mean, I get, or maybe they just think Jeremiah Love's just too great. You can't pass on him, but I don't know. I get it where people are coming from there. I would like if they got all 3 like that. I mean, I don't think it's a bad thing. You definitely help your offense for sure. But I think it depends on what receiver you can get in the 2nd round, because it's not like out of receiver, left tackle, and running back, running back's obviously the lowest in my opinion. So I don't know. I think maybe we all saw what Genty did last year, the crap line. Sorry, no to Love. Yeah, I would probably lean more left tackle. I like Judkins. I think Judkins is a stud. I think Judkins is fine. I think he's a number 1, no doubt. I don't think it's even. I think he showed it to me enough. I think he showed a lot to me. Like he's a dude moving forward, and I think Sampson's fine. And maybe you just take another. Maybe you bring back Rocket Sanders, who I think was not bad when he got in there. Maybe bring in another guy in the draft. Maybe get my boy Chip Trainum out of Toledo. Shout out him. Go Knights. In the late rounds, or from Toledo. Maybe he could be a 3rd guy you can bring in there for depth. But I would probably go more left tackle still. That's me. But just think how good Judkins could do with getting out without getting the first hit behind the line. Yeah, I mean, you saw what Judkins was in college when he had a good offensive line. He was an absolute stud. And so what he showed last year to me too, his ability to shed tackles, be physical, and extend and have explosive plays and chop for yards. I mean, with that situation last year, you make a good point. I think he'll be even greater with a better O-line. I think they have improved the O-line already. So, yeah, I agree. I think Judkins is going to have a great year, a great career. But appreciate you guys. We're getting into more draft analysis. Don't worry. I appreciate it. I love talking draft with you guys today. This has been a fun show up here for an hour and a half. I wasn't expecting to come up here this long, but, for you guys and the conversation today, why not? It was a lot of fun. Make sure you subscribe if you like this content. We're going to come back and have more of these discussions and watching from Kokomo, Indiana. Go Browns. Look at that, Humble. We got a guy from Indiana. Shout out to you. CJ Preach. Shout out to you, CJ. Yeah, shout out to you. Thank you for watching from Indiana. Go Browns. Cleveland had success with Chubb and Hunt. Yeah. I'm from Canada. Shout out to Brian Johnson from Canada. That's very cool.
Shout out
Also,
Canada.
Buckeyes fan. Go Bucks. I mean, that's what we're talking about. Go Bucks. Beach Boys. What are you talking about there with the Beach Boys? My spelling is going downhill drinking. I see beer 10 packs. Oh, you're all good. Before we get out of here, though, obviously subscribe to this channel and hit the like button. We'll be having more of these conversations, and I love interacting with you guys. And I'm gonna drop the link in future shows. And you can see the Hotmail right, the hotline's not Hotmail, hotline 216-532-5550, 216-532-5550. You can call to the show, leave a voicemail, and I'll play your voicemail on the next show, and we'll react to it. And I'll even drop the link, too. You guys will come up and interact with us during the show and talk with us and chat. That'd be cool as well. So hit the subscribe button. But also, I need you guys to do a favor for me as well. If you like MMA, if you like the sport of called UFC, right? The sport of UFC, my man Humble is going to be has his own YouTube channel. He's already made it. And he's doing his own UFC content. Humble, you want to take it away, brother? Kind of what's going on here at your channel?
Yeah, man. I just need a little bit of support, man, from you guys. If you guys want to come over and sub and get me going, just so I know I have a fan base to get behind, man. I'm a diehard, man. I actually got it on right now. I'm watching it as I'm trying to multitask. I love being up here and talking live, and we love to put out content. And Joe's been on my tail about making this channel, and it's just a start. I don't have much videos up there right now, but if you guys could just stop by and give me a sub, it's real easy. It's just Humble Man and MMA. Just come by how you guys come over here, and it would be much love and appreciated.
Yeah, if you're in the UFC or maybe you want to get into UFC, go subscribe to
Right.
Man Humble. He's gonna have great content over there. He's probably the most. He loves talking Cavs. He likes talking Browns, but he's probably most passionate about MMA and UFC. So definitely go give him go subscribe to him and give him some love and support. He's gonna get the content pumping out there for you guys. So go support my man. He's one of the biggest supporters for all of us and just a great human being. So definitely go help him out, and let's help him out, get him going. But shout out to you, Humble, and shout out to all you on the playback. Shout out to all you in the chat. Shout out to my man Brian Johnson. He said the last thing tight end from Oregon. I saw, Sadiq. I don't think they'll take him in the first round, but he is a hell of a prospect, no doubt about it. But I don't think they'll take a tight end that early, personally. Peace, man. I'm going outdoors. Finally getting a nice day in Portland, Oregon. Well, shout out to you from Portland, Oregon. We got people from Canada, Humble, Indiana, Portland, all over today. So shout out to all you guys. Shout out to Humble and his new channel. And
I tell you what, Oregon is one of the most beautifulest places on the West Coast. I'll say that. So you're a lucky man. I'll tell you that. I enjoyed being in Oregon back in the day, and because I used to live in Idaho, 45 minutes away from Boise, Emmett, Idaho. But I'll tell you what, traveled to Oregon, and it's cold. It's cold out there in the ocean. I came out there in that wetsuit, man, and I'll tell you what, you guys got some very lovely views out there, man. So I'm happy to be home and everything, but I'll tell you what, enjoy that air, man, out there in Oregon.
you said Boise is awesome.
Yes, sir.
Shout out to all you guys, man. Like, subscribe, share all the good stuff, and we'll see you guys in the next one. I'm saluting out of here, Humble. What do you got? What are you doing out here? Peace. All right, he's out. Yeah, I always wonder what he's doing off camera. You saluting? What are you doing?
I'm saluting.
When I ask my other co-host Mike this question, he's always got some like outlandish stuff he's doing. He's running down the street. He's painting. I don't know. I don't want to get into it, but shout out to all you guys. He said peace, Humble. He said I enjoy the sweet air every day. Absolutely.
Heck yeah, man.
Thank the good Lord above for another day, and go check out our show too from our previous shows too. We have a lot of real life discussions about life beyond sports. I think you guys really enjoy that. So go check out our previous shows we did, especially yesterday. It's a really good one as well. If you're into that stuff. So Love all you guys. Like, subscribe, share all the good stuff. We're up out of here.
Yes,
Gone.
sir.